The Jimmy Z Show.
You know, there's all this crap going on about voter fraud. And I think two things are happening. One, that many Americans are much more aware now, and they're watching much more carefully. And so they're catching more of this and reporting more of this than they have before. I'm not sure that there's an increase in voter fraud as much as there's an increase in reporting voter fraud. But the fact is, there is a lot of reporting of possible voter fraud. These voting machines apparently cannot be trusted. People are going in and they're pressing a button or whatever you do on the touch screen or however it's set up. I'm using my absentee ballot and I'm going to drop it off at my polling place because it's on paper. I want my vote on paper. But it seems to me that the voting machines cannot be trusted in many instances. We should go back to paper. And I remember after the 2008 election, I went on Facebook and I tried to get people fired up, typing a bunch of messages. And I tried to get people fired up. Hey, let's start a movement. Let's go back to paper. Nationwide, from Alaska to Texas, from California to New York, let's go back to paper ballots. I got nothing. People are not interested in doing the hard work. You can type on Facebook all day long, 365 days a year, we need paper ballots. It doesn't accomplish anything. But I think people are much more comfortable typing on Facebook than leaving the house and actually doing something that starts a movement and might actually get something done. But I think we need paper ballots. I've got my absentee ballot right here. It's paper, just like the paper ballots used to be. And there's no machine that when you press Mitt Romney, it bounces for some stupid, inexplicable reason back to Obama. It doesn't do that on paper. I've got the choices here. Roseanne Barr and Cindy Sheehan. I can't believe it's an insult to the American election system that Roseanne Barr and Cindy Sheehan are on this stupid ballot. But you've got the presidential choices right here. Roseanne Barr. I'm just going to read the presidents, not the vice presidents. Roseanne Barr, Barack Obama, Jill Stein, Thomas Hoefling, Mitt Romney, and Gary Johnson. And there's a place to write in one. But you would use the clicker to move down and punch out the Chad. And so now there's a hole where you chose Mitt Romney. And then you take the paper ballot, put it in the little envelope, and drop it in the box. That's a much more reliable way. So I'm going to put a bunch of these stories about potential election voting machine fraud in the show notes, but I'm not going to go through each one because they're all over the place. And I keep saying the same thing. If the Republican Party in those states that are having such instances don't care enough to react, I mean, it's up to the state Republican Party to call out these shenanigans if they're happening.
That does it! Shenanigans! Shenanigans!
What are you doing?
I'm declaring shenanigans! 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 Shenanigans!
What's all this?
But if the Republican Party in whatever given state is not going to do anything about it, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to wake up tomorrow morning, no matter what happens. If it's Mitt Romney who wins or Barack Obama who wins, I am not going to wake up tomorrow morning and complain about any voter fraud unless the Republican Party in those states where supposed voter fraud was a problem reacted and did something about it. Because I can't get on a plane and fly to Ohio or wherever and walk into a polling place and say, these machines have been tampered with. But I will put a bunch of stories in the show notes. You know, the fact is that there's no proof. If a machine is acting up, that's, again, why I want to go back to paper ballots, because if the machine is acting up, who knows? Who knows if it's been programmed by some nefarious liberal Democrat who is forcing the machine to bounce back to Obama if you vote for Mitt Romney, or if it's just a crappy machine. You know, calibration is a part of this issue. The first thing you do when you get a smartphone is you calibrate the screen. Finger here, finger there, press here, and it orients the screen so that when you press a button for a given app, you're pressing the right part of the screen to hit the right button. And you know, I'm right in the middle of this. It's a very important point. We have to go over to side 2. I'm Jimmy Z. It's the Big Jimmy Z Show. Click the player, and I'll talk to you there. Okay, Jimmy Z, hour number 2. And I want to finish up what I was talking about calibration. Because, again, my example was a smartphone. And when you calibrate the screen, you touch here, and then you touch there, and then you press the button in the middle, and it locks in a calibration so that you are pressing the right part of the screen for the display that you're looking at. The same thing happens with these voting machines. They've got to be calibrated. And every time there's a problem, some official says, well, the machines were not calibrated correctly. Well, that doesn't mean that they were not calibrated incorrectly on purpose. You know, simply saying that the voting machine was not calibrated correctly does not solve the issue of voter fraud. If the voting machine can be calibrated incorrectly, and it can, then it can certainly be calibrated incorrectly on purpose. So again, if you go back to paper, problem solved. Nobody can miscalibrate on purpose or by accident a paper ballot. It can't be done. You know exactly who you're voting for, and if you don't, you're an idiot. And these voting machines are being handled by who knows who. Who knows who's touching, calibrating, programming, putting together the voting machines? I have no idea, but most everybody, except for a few people who claim to be undecided, everybody has a political opinion. Everybody makes a choice in the election. I don't especially want Republicans or conservatives or Christian conservatives or liberals or socialists or communists or Democrats or independents for that matter. I don't want people interfering with my vote. And the potential with a voting machine, the potential for interfering with my vote is always there. With a paper ballot, like I have here, my absentee ballot, and I'm going to drop it off at the polling place, just like I would any other paper ballot. This paper ballot would have to be thrown away or burned in order for anyone to interfere with my vote. And that's much less likely to happen. Paper ballots. I want this country to go back to paper ballots across the board. All 50 states, every county, every city, every jurisdiction. We need to go back to paper ballots. The voting machines cannot be trusted. They can't be. And if you listen to my show with any frequency whatsoever, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I am not saying that any voter fraud is happening, because I have not seen any articles where people have been arrested or that incontrovertible proof has been offered that there has been voter fraud in terms of the voting machines. I just saw I saw a story on television last night on the local news that here in California there are a bunch of dead people on the voter rolls. Well, you know what? That, to a certain extent, that can be explained. Because I would imagine that you don't automatically get pulled off of the voter rolls when you die. You should be, but, government is very slow. So for that reason and some others, I'm not really that concerned about dead people voting. I am concerned about voting machines. Because the opportunities for fraud seem to me to be prevalent and numerous. There's all kinds of ways to screw around with voting machines. Look at the hackers that invade your computer at home. And you've got a firewall, an antivirus, and all kinds of crap on your computer to prevent it, and still they can find a way in. And you're telling me this rinky-dink voting machine is secure. I would rather have people vote online through a secured server. Would probably be a more secure way of voting than these stupid voting machines.
The Jimmy Z Show.